Hello everyone, my name is Jen and welcome to the Book Refuge. Hi friends, and welcome to week 3 of 2024. It's time to wrap up my reading. I am in another overly sunny Fargo, North Dakota. Like, what the hell? It's just meant to drive me crazy. That's what it's here to do, to be overly sunny when we should have cloudy days. You know what? I've never been so in want of cloudy days than I have been this winter. Like, it's ridiculous. We have so much to go over, so as always, we'll start with a few little announcements, and then we'll get into the 11 books that I read this week, which was great. I really made some progress, which I'm surprised about because I also was doing a lot of work this week, which we'll get to. So first off, we have some new channel supporters to welcome. We have Marikazat, who is a new channel member. So hi, welcome. Thank you so much for supporting me that way. That's amazing. And then we have two new patrons. We have Terry T and Selena, who both joined us. So thank you so much for supporting me here. It means so much to me. So then what we have is I did finally get my act together, and the new Etsy collection launched, and it's already been really successful. I've already sold out of a couple things, but I have kind of this Valentine's / like love collection that I put up, which has these super cute Valentine designs here. There's these pretty hearts and these lollipop hearts I love so much. Then we have kind of these like, this is actually like trees and stuff. It's like purple and pink colors. I love it. And then these are some dark red roses. And then there is this super fun pattern. This is one of the ones that was sent to me from a viewer. Sent me some patterns. She sent me these ones as well, actually, but it has beards. It reminds me totally of Penny Reed, but it has these like fear the beard, with great beard, a full chin for the win. Like, it's so cute. So I have these in the different sizes. I also did stock up on some cute bookmarks too. This one I love. It reminds me of like Crescent City. I'm going to use one of these in my CC3 when it comes out. It even like will match the gold and everything. It's so cool. And then I also was super impressed with how much people wanted the pencil pouches this time. So I've actually almost sold out of what I listed, but don't worry, those of you who are wanting more, I have 10 more to make. I just was, I usually don't sell those or have a lot of like want for those. So I just launched with what I already had made, but I do have about 10 more already cut and ready to sew, and I'll get to that soon. So definitely check that out. I always have the link to my Etsy. Even if there's nothing there you're interested in right now, make sure you're following my Etsy shop to get alerts when I do. One of my patrons, she had been wanting pencil pouches. That's why I made some more, because I was like, oh, if you want some, I'll make some. Cool. And she bought 4 of them immediately because she was following the listing. So when I updated it, she knew. So anyway, that's some of the background for that. And we're going to get into the books that I read just as soon as I fix the lighting again, rolling with. So let's dive into what I read this week. So the first one up we have to talk about is A Bride for the Prize Fighter by Alice Coldbreath. This book was actually given to me by one of my patrons for Christmas. She gave me the whole trilogy. And this is also one that's been recommended. Well, I think the second one in the series has been recommended a lot, but I wanted to start with the first one. And it actually is on both Audible Plus and Anyplay if you want to listen to this. It had a really good narrator. The narrator for this one is Carmen Rose. I've been writing down who the narrators are this time around, and I'm happy that I did that. So this is set in the Victorian era, obviously. Well, maybe it's not obviously. This series is called The Victorian Prize Fighters. And it is an arranged marriage between this school teacher who she has like lost her job because her father died and they weren't able to maintain the school anymore that she was working at. And her half brother he comes in and he has like arranged a marriage for her. What she doesn't know, and I mean, she doesn't want this marriage, but like she doesn't really have a choice. She has nowhere to go. She doesn't have any money. And her half brother happens to be a like, I don't think he's a duke, but he's some kind of important guy. Like he has some connections. But she just doesn't like him very much. I don't know. It wasn't fully explained to me why she doesn't like him, but he arranges a marriage with her with this guy named Will. What's his last name? Will Nye, who is a prize fighter who owns this bar or this tavern called the Lusty Harlot, or what's it called? The Merry Harlot. I actually have a little postcard with it, which is cute. And she ends up getting married to him. What she and him don't know is that her half-brother is also his half-brother, but it's the different halves, so like they're not related. So that's kind of fucked up of him to do that. But anyway, this relationship between Mina and Will, I honestly want to call it a little bit toxic. It's not toxic as in a dark romance sense that we'd see, but there is some attraction between them, and pretty much every time that these two end up having sex, it's because they were having an argument first, which I will say was like maybe hot the first or second time because they just can't keep their hands off each other. It quickly got old to me that he would end arguments with her by fucking her. And he even would like he would just do it every time. He wouldn't explain things to her. Like, she wants to help with his business. She's helping with the like rooms, and he doesn't want her to work, but yet he won't just explain that thing. He'll just get mad when he sees her doing it and like yell at her. And he has those characteristics of like the grumpy hero who secretly is pining for her. But we don't get really his POV in this one at all. Which I was warned about, I think, by Megan. I think she warned me that this one is a bit like different than the other ones are. But anyway, I ended up getting pretty annoyed with Will that he just wouldn't communicate anything with her. There's a bit of like a mystery too happening in the background, and I really loved all the characters at the Merry Harlot and the people she worked with, and I ended up even liking their half-brother because he ended up being more charming than I expected. So I didn't hate this book. And I did end up, I believe, I ended up rating it a 4. But I didn't love this hero. I really liked the heroine. I liked her character arc, how she grew to kind of like see things a bit differently, and that, like, I liked that. But I can't say I felt super great about their relationship because, like, this isn't a dark romance. So you can't just fuck her into submission all the time. Like, we need to get into more of it. So I got a little annoyed with Will, but I liked Mina just fine. And I ended up giving this 4 stars. And, I mean, it is like a 3 on the spice scale because they do go at it quite a bit. But it just got a bit frustrating sometimes. So I am reading the second one, though. And it also starts with a hero being a complete jackass to the heroine. But in this one, we get his POV as well. So I understand more why he's being so mean to her, I guess. But anyway, moving along. Okay, next up I read It Just Feels Right by Hope Ford. Now, I actually had an arc of this one, and I believe it's out now. And this one, I've read a few Hope Fords before, actually. She had, like, The Men of Whiskey Run, I've read. And I don't know what I was expecting from this one, because I don't know another way to say this. Hope Ford has very, like, simple writing. Now, I don't have a problem with that. I just still want my story to be compelling. And I didn't find much really compelling about this couple, even though this is supposed to be kind of like a taboo scenario. This is a step-brother romance. He's a police officer for the town. He's 10 years older than her. Their parents have recently gotten married, and she is home and having to like live with her mother and stepfather. And the mother just constantly cuts her down and is trying to make her like push her into the place that she wants. And she's out one night with her friends, and this guy like hits on her, and there ends up being a situation, and so the police gets called. So Baker, he comes in, and he doesn't know who she is yet, because I mean, he knows that he has a stepsister, but they've never like met in person. And he sees her as he's walking into the bar to deal with this issue, and it's insta love. insta lust. He's like, I want her to have my babies. I'm not even fucking kidding you. The first scene. I will go in on insta love, okay? I can do it, but not in this one. Not in this one. So he's already made all the, and I know why Hope Ford is doing that, because very quickly as soon as he hears her name, he knows that it's his stepsister. So it's like we have to have him completely already bought in on her so that when he discovers she's his stepsister, he's still going to want to pursue her. But it just was like, who is this guy? Like, is he a fucking stalker? Because he immediately is like, I'm swearing too much today, I'm sorry. He's immediately like, she's mine. I'm going to make it work. It doesn't matter. We're not really related. Which, I mean, that's all true. That's fine. But I would have liked more if he like thought she was attractive, finds out it's its stepsister, and then it's like, oh, there can't be anything. And then like when there's family dinners, he's falling for her more or something. But he just was immediately like, I'm going to make it work with her. She's going to have my babies. And so it just made this whole story ridiculous. It really was. Because it was an arc, I rated it 3.5 stars. Because it was an arc, but honestly it would have been a 3 or less for me. It was a 3 on the spice scale. Again, the mom was super abusive, and like it is a very gentle look at a step sibling relationship. So if you want one that isn't too cringy or whatever, well, I mean, it's going to be cringy for other reasons, but you could definitely give this one a go. But like, I don't really recommend it. Okay, then I listened to Ruined by M. O'Keefe. This was narrated by Kit Swan, who I actually like. She's narrated for Joanna Shupe before and some other historical romance authors, so I like her. Now, Ruined is a part of the Midnight Dynasty, and if you don't know, that used to be a part of, like, I think it was Dark Hearts Romance was this, like, small, like, publisher or whatever, like, Lessons in Sin is a part of this world. Gianna Darling's done a book in this world. There's Amelia Wilde and there is Skye Warren, and they all have put these books in the same world. I think it's the Morellis and the Constantines are like the two families, and one of them is like high, rich business and the other is like a mafia, and there keeps being interactions between them, and that's the easiest way I have to like explain this, right? So in this one, it's the first in a trilogy, which all the books are out. I got a free copy of the audiobook to review this. And so I did, and I didn't hate this one, but it's so not a complete story. It's like one of the reasons I stopped reading the Midnight Dynasty is they were all being turned into trilogies, and it just pissed me off so much that they were all turned into trilogies and there was just no reason for them to be that. But because I knew that going in, this wasn't a surprise drop. I knew there'd be a cliffhanger. I still was like, let's give this a go. So this one is about our heroine, Poppy, who her husband has just killed himself. He was an abusive husband though. They had a awful beginning to their marriage. She was in pain every day. And so it's a relief that he's dead, but she still doesn't quite feel free from him. And so things have been difficult for her. So then there's this guy named Ronan who is a bodyguard for her like mother figure. I don't know another. So she actually has a really good like opinion of Caroline. So that was kind of different to see. But yeah, basically she's just getting used to her husband being gone, and it's been very like difficult for her. And Ronan, he's this bodyguard, and she starts seeing him around a lot, and it turns out he might have something to do with her husband dying. So there's not too much else to say about this. I know that's a horrible explanation, but I just didn't super connect with it. But I did like the performance of the audiobook, and I will maybe continue with these if they're going to offer me the audiobooks so that I can see where it goes. So note to self, we needed to move to another section here, but here we go. Next up, I read Restrain Me by Michelle Hurd. This is book 4 in the Corrupted Royal series. This one is about Cammie and Maxim. Now, Cammie is the daughter of a politician, and she needs a bodyguard. And Maxim, he is an assassin who has like went through Monarch Academy. He's like the best out there. So he doesn't really do bodyguarding. That's not his thing. But he actually feels indebted to Cammie's dad and feels like he owes them this because he accidentally shot Cammie once. His hit was for someone that she was with, and she got in the way, and he's never messed up before except with her this one time. So he feels super guilty about it, and he agrees to be her bodyguard. So this is a forced proximity. Someone ends up coming after her, and then they got to go on the run. So there's some forced proximity that way. Forbidden romance, all that good stuff. All right, next up, I read the new release One Night by Lena Hendricks. I did wait just a little bit to read this. I didn't have an arc of this one, and I had other stuff to get to. But this is the last book in the Sullivan series, though we're not leaving this town. We're now going to do the King side. And kind of in a way we've seen happen before. Like, there was quite a few things about this actually that reminded me of the Bailey brothers, which is totally fine. I mean, it's a tried and true formula. I'm not saying it's a copycat at all, but the way it really reminded me of that is like Rewrite the Stars by Claire Kingsley. That couple is a Romeo and Juliet, forbidden romance, and after their romance we switched to the Haven brothers, right? Well, in this one we have the oldest Sullivan brother, Duke, who's a blueberry farmer. He has given up on a lot of his dreams so that he can stay and help with his family and with his father, who has dementia. I mean, that's so hard. Like, it's so hard. And we have Sylvie, which it did make me laugh because I realized that once she married him, she'd be Sylvia Sullivan, which it's like, really, Lena? Couldn't we picked another name for her? But anyway, and these two are forbidden friends. And when we're done with this one, the King's books are coming next. So we have Sylvia King, and she works at like a bakery / coffee shop in town. And so he's always delivering fresh blueberries there. And whenever they have had to, like, usually he's delivering them to someone else, but one day she has to take the delivery, and they end up exchanging numbers so that he can tell her when he's going to be making the drop-offs. And they end up with this secret texting relationship. For like 9 months, they've been friends. They're both so pining for each other because they've fallen for each other through their secret discussions. It eventually leads to them doing like secret phone calls with each other. They have their names as something else in their phones. Like, it's a whole thing that they have to do. And finally, they have this chance one day where they sneak away and they have sex and have this fling for the day, and they're like, this is going to be our only chance to be together, because if our families ever found out, it would be awful. Well, she gets pregnant. So now they have to face the town together and say, like, the Kings and the Sullivans are going to be joined no matter what. And there, of course, is lots of opposition from this, and they have to kind of weather the storm together. Also, you know, like, Sylvie and Duke, of course, are both under the assumptions that they still are only friends with each other, even though they've been fucking pining for each other forever. Anyway, I loved this one. I know I'm whining about it, but they both feel so much responsibility. Like, for Duke, I understand, like, there's so much weight on his shoulders. And for Sylvie, like, she has been really, like, disregarded by her brothers and really beaten down by her father, who's a complete asshole. We don't like him at all. But I really liked this relationship between them, that it was like a Romeo and Juliet, friends to lovers. You know, like, they are supposed to be rival families, but then they become friends to lovers. Accidental pregnancy, farmer hero, I'm here for it. So yeah, I ended up loving this one, and I think that it's my favorite in the series, if not tied with the first one. I think that it is. So I gave it 5 stars, and it's a 3 on the spice scale. Next up, I did a reread of Chasing Cassandra by Lisa Kleypas. I annotated this for one of my patrons, and I just loved it. She's had me revisit a few books in the Ravenels, and I love them so much. So this one is about Cassandra I don't even know, is she a Ravenel? Yeah, she is. Cassandra Ravenel. And she's actually the last Ravenel who's not married. And she, what was I going to say? And she is sad that she's the last one. There we go. So this actually backtracks like a little bit in the story to when Tom and Cassandra really like are interacting, and I think it's at the wedding of her sister is the first time they show them. And then they keep like meeting up at the different weddings that are happening for everybody. And she, in the beginning of this, is asking her cousin West, so this is before he's married, if they're not married in 5 years, if he'll marry her. And he's like, no, honey, that's not going to happen. Like, you'll find someone much better than me. And I mean, eventually West, you know, he finds someone else anyway. And Tom thinks that Cassandra is so beautiful, and he wants to marry her. And everyone's like, no, Tom, you don't believe in love. You're not romantic. Cassandra deserves the world. And so he's now kind of like, well, whatever, I want her. So he does kind of make a pass at her, but when he's like, I want to marry you, and like, he's a billionaire, he's a railroad magnate, he's a billionaire in terms of when it is. So I classify this as a billionaire romance. He's a made man in all those aspects. But after they talk, he has a soft spot for her, and he's like, yeah, I would steal some of her dreamful spirit. I couldn't think of a word. Goodness gracious. So they just kind of become, well, they don't really become friends, because she wants to be friends, and he's like, I can't be your friend because I'm really attracted to you, but I know that I wouldn't be what's best for you, so we're just not going to interact too much. But then Cassandra finds herself in a tough situation where someone ruins her reputation, and Tom is like, you know what? Fuck it. I'm going to win her. And he does some really amazing things to prove that he will be a good partner to her. So, loved revisiting this. Of course, still a 5-star, and I'm so glad that I got to revisit that. Okay, next up was 1% of You by Michelle Gross. And this one was recommended with that, like, in spades by people when I asked for lactation kink recs, because I'm trying to put a video together for that. And as expected, it's very difficult to put it together if you're not willing to take hakao kink, which I'm not interested in at all, and I'm not going to put in a video. No kink shaming, but I'm just not interested. I want lactation kink where the woman's had a baby and she's having sex again for the first time and there's milk happening, okay? So I want the scenarios that are in this one and in P.S. You're Intolerable, right? Maybe someday, far down the road, I'll try other versions of it, but for now, that's what I want. I want it natural, I want it beautiful, and I want it to be emotional. And there are very few of those that it works with. And when I asked for those recommendations, there was 3 books people recommended to me, and 2 of them I already knew about, right? And this was one that I hadn't heard of before. It turns out it was in my book rec form, though, probably because I love single mothers and everything. It was recommended. I don't have a name who recommended it, but it was recommended quite a while ago. So it's not like this was never a possibility for me to read it, but I didn't know what it was about. So this one is a very young mom. She's only 21. She already has a 3-year-old because her and her boyfriend had a baby, and she's also pregnant again when she's 21. She's in nursing school. Her boyfriend is an absolute, like, deadbeat. He keeps going to school and saying, like, well, I can't, like, fully help parent while I'm still in school, but yet she's in school and has to do it. And she comes home to him cheating on her with her cousin. So she's like, you know what? It would be easier if I just did this by myself and stopped counting on you, rather than like living with you and always being worried if you're going to let me down or not. So she ends up getting her own place. Her parents help her a lot. Her parents are wonderful, but she gets her own apartment. And it is in like low-income housing, as it would be. And our hero, he's actually moved back to town. His parents are in this town too. He's 10, 12 years older than her. I think he's like 11 or 12 years older than her. And he owns tattoo parlors. He definitely looks like he's on the rough side of things, but I mean, he's awesome. And he ends up being her neighbor, not in the apartment, but he owns a house that's like next to the apartments. And he's a very judgy asshole in the beginning. He really is. He is thinking things about her that, like, geez, look at this, like, it's all people who live off the government, and like, she doesn't really work. Like, he's thinking all these awful things, right? And you're like, wow, what a jackass. But one by one, all those things he's thinking are proved wrong, and he realizes how, like, he realizes how, like, judgy and off base he is about her with thing by thing he notices, you know, that. But anyway, she's pregnant at the beginning of this. And there's an interaction with him and her little girl, Lucy, when they're at the grocery store, where he, like, steals the bag of chips that she wants. And he's kind of an ass about it. And so later on, they're, like, she's, like, leaving in the morning, and he's, like, coming in, and the little girl's like, that's the chip thief. And so she starts calling him like a thief and everything. And Hadley, the mom, is just so, like, embarrassed about it, and is also, like, mad at this guy because he was a jerk to her little girl. And they just, yeah, it's a real, like, slow burn, because first he thinks bad about them, then he's kind of a jerk and really judgy about it. And then slowly, like, he just realizes how off base he was about everything. But now she's like, why are you being nice to me? Because he starts like bringing chips for the little girl and like helping when she needs it. And she's like, I don't want this. Then she has the baby, and he realizes that during that time where she's like at home for a while, she realizes how much she like misses seeing him. And this also points out something that is like super heartbreaking, where she's only able to stay home with her kid for like the 6 weeks. Like, that's it. And then she has to start bringing her son to her parents and her having to go to her shifts because she's still in school and trying to finish that before she'll be able to get a nursing job and be able to like have days off, because she really doesn't. She's in school and she's working, and it's really just, your heart just goes out to her. And then there's the side complication that her ex is like immediately wants his easy pussy back and is, you know, trying to guilt her into being there for them to be a family. And she's like, you aren't putting in any effort for your kids except what it is to try to win me back, because he'll have opportunities to have the kids, but like he wants her to be there when he gets to be with the kids. And his parents are absolute assholes as well. So there honestly was some pretty triggering content to me with him and his parents and stuff. But she stands strong. But it is so tough because he's just badgering her and she does feel guilty because she's like, am I keeping my little girl away from him? But she sees how he is when he does have the chance to have the little girl, and it's not good. So she's like, stay strong. So anyway, eventually, like, he becomes that like friend to them, and he helps when she is in troubled times, and he just falls for all of them. Honestly, he falls a little bit for Lucy before he ever falls for Hadley. And and then when her little boy is there too, his name is Elijah, by the way. And it's just it was such a beautiful story to watch. And so yes, eventually once they're ready to be sexually active, we have some lactation kink going on, and it's super sexy. So this one was like, it wasn't overly depressing. I want to be clear. I know I just listed a lot of things that were hard, but again, in the same way of like P.S. You're Intolerable, where your heart is breaking for this woman, she is determined and she is a good woman, and she does have people in her corner. And so whenever she has to deal with that jackass of a ex, you're just like, you can do this. So I really liked this one a lot. It was almost a 6-star read. I had a couple books this week that were really close to being my first 6-star, but there was just a few things that like drug on too long. And she was also like extremely insecure with him for a long part. Now I can understand it. It doesn't mean I think it's unreasonable, but I'm still more looking for a sweet spot. Like I want, again, with P.S. You're Intolerable, like she gets on board sooner at a certain point, and for all the things Elijah does for this family, for her to still question if he's gonna be there at a certain point was just, I was like, girl, open your damn eyes, you know. But I still gave it 5 stars. I'll absolutely be recommending it. And again, look out for that lactation kink video as soon as I can put it together. It was a 3 on the spice scale, and it was very beautiful. Okay, then I read Possess Me by Michelle Hurd. This is the one that I was needing to get to because this is the last book in the series, and I annotated this for one of my patrons. And this is book 5 in the Corrupted Royals, and this one, y'all, this one's intense. This one has a bit of like Still Beating vibes going on in it, because these two, Alec and I forgot her name, Alec and Everly, they get kidnapped in the beginning. So actually, he accidentally kidnaps the wrong person. He is with his mafia family. He's supposed to kidnap this one girl for ransom, or to get this other mafia boss to do what they want. And instead, him and the girl and his brother all get kidnapped. And the girl, realizing that she needs to make herself valuable to the kidnappers, says that she's his girlfriend, and he agrees to go along with it because he feels really guilty that he got her in this place. And he agrees, like, they'll kill you if you're not worth it to them. So this first part of this book is them being stuck in captivity together, being starved and abused, and eventually forced, at one point, he's forced to prove that they're together by him having to fuck her in front of them. And that, happens not too long before they get out of there, but something happens where they are separated from each other quite violently. And then we find out that she's pregnant, and not only does she think he's dead and he thinks she's dead, she also doesn't really want to reach out to his family because they're in the mafia, and she's like, I've had enough of it. So again, okay reason for a secret baby. Then I won't spoil more than that, but there are some coincidences where they end up in the same place, and we'll get to see them have a second chance. So this was very emotional. There was a lot of hard things in this, and I ended up giving this one 4.5 stars, and it is a, I don't know, 2.5, 3 on the spice scale. I can't remember what I gave it. 2.5, yeah. And honestly, the only reason it wasn't like fully a 5-star for me is that they go through some horrific things in the beginning of this, and I feel like we just skip right through it in a lot of ways. It's hard to explain. But Michelle Hirschy has a simple way of writing where she just goes do, gets through everything. And I think that, yes, there's some PTSD shown on the page, absolutely. But I think we needed to talk through some of the things, like a little bit more. But this is, I think book 2 is still my favorite in the series, about his adopted sister. I think that one's still my favorite, but this was a 4.5, and I totally understand why my patron loved it so much, because it was very good. Okay, just a couple left here. So then I listened to The Bet by Max Monroe. I was listening to this while I was sewing away on my projects this week. This is about Jude and Sophie. It was narrated by Tanya Eby and Nelson Hobbs, which I think I've listened to a Tanya Eby before, but I didn't recognize Nelson Hobbs. Maybe I have, maybe I haven't, I don't know. So this is a little rom-com. This is one that's available on Audible Plus. Quite a few of Max Monroe's titles are available on there, which is why I snagged this one. This is the first in the Winslow Brothers is the series, and it does connect with her like Banking the Billionaire and with her Maverick series. Actually, our hero's brother-in-law is one of the players on the Mavericks, I think. I don't know, but it connects with it. But our hero, he is like a club promoter / like he helps get venues going. And so in the beginning, he's working at this club that they've just gotten set up, and there's going to be a bachelorette party coming in, and a bet gets made with one of the dancers that he can't strip good enough. So he ends up taking this bachelorette party, and he plays the stripper at it. Now, our girl, Sophie, she has a twin sister. I think it's Belle is her twin sister, and Belle is the bride. So it's her bachelorette party, and she's so shy. She does not want someone dancing on her, so she wants to like leave. And her friend's like, no, it was really hard to get in here. We got in here because it was a special event. Like, we're not going to leave. And she's like, well, you pretend to be me and let him grind on you, because I just can't. I would die. So she's like, okay. So she switches clothes with her sister, and their friends are like so drunk they don't really notice, but she pretends to be the bride. And so Jude is like, does the whole routine for her, and she ends up actually like orgasming, and well, he's like grinding on her. It's very embarrassing. And he knows that it happens, but he's like, she's going to be the bride, and he's just like, I don't want to bear it. But he was like, whoa. So then a little while later, she actually, by her therapist, has been encouraged to start dating because she just has been having a rough time of it, and she's being encouraged to do that. And she goes on a date, and Jude hasn't been able to stop thinking about Sophie. And the place that he is having dinner, he sees her on a date over there. So what does he assume? He assumes that that's her new husband, because it was the bride that he had like danced on. So he goes over and he's like, I just want to say congratulations, which he should have thought through, because if that had been her husband and this had been the stripper from the club they'd went to, do you think that would be appropriate to come say hi? But it isn't. And he ends up ruining her date, and she's just like so embarrassed and everything. And he's like, that was my twin. Like, we switched places. And he's like, oh gosh. But anyway, that's the beginning, like, fun of this. And then this book proceeded to be way too long, have a commitment phobic hero, and just drag itself out. I just bitched about this in the live show I did the other day, and I bitch about it all the time. I understand. Books are being drawn out way too long this time. And it was just weird because I feel like Max Monroe doesn't usually do that, but this book was just 100 pages too long. And it made the hero seem so commitment phobic and annoying because it just kept drawing it out, where I feel like it didn't need to have him like take so long to get to that. So they end up becoming like fuck buddies, friends with benefits, and he never wants to make it more serious. So he was a weenie. I gave it 3.5 stars because I did enjoy the narration. And I will probably continue the series because I think I'll like the other Winslow brothers better. And there's a whole like lore that kind of goes with this series as well. But I'll save some secrets. I've said enough. But yeah, it wasn't awful, but it also was just like, it could have been a better story if it had been shorter and he hadn't appeared quite so like commitment phobic. But yeah, I think the next one is like Married in Vegas, and then another one is a professor student one, and then another one is a second chance romance, I think. So I will probably continue since these audios are on Anyplay. But yeah, this one, it could have been better. Okay, so then just 2 left here. So we'll do the short one first. I actually finally read Midsummer by Aletha Faust. I've had this on my Kindle since the day that it came out. This is actually a quick sapphic, like paranormal, spicy thing. Well, it wasn't that spicy, but we have this woman named Jenna who is like on a trip with her like boyfriend or whatever, and she ends up getting like lured away from there, and she meets a bear, and then it turns out this bear is actually magical and can turn into a woman, and there ends up being some spicy things between them. There's not too much else to say than that, but it was cool. I was glad I finally read it, but I mean, there wasn't much story to it, which is fine. That's what it's supposed to be. So I gave it a 3-star, and it was a 2 on the spice scale. Okay, now the last book that I read, which this was good, but I have some conflicted feelings. So I read Secret Obsession by S. Massery. Now, this was the 3rd book in a series. No, I haven't read the other 2, but this one was recommended on the cock-warming video I just did, which, by the way, thank you guys for all the love to that video. I was so nervous to make that one. I was blushing the whole time. I know I love making the oddly specific and kinky videos for you guys, but they're still like, I still get embarrassed, okay? I'm still a woman who blushes at stuff. But one of the books recommended in that was this one, because the hero likes to go to sleep inside the heroine. So that's cock-warming right there. But yeah, this one is the 3rd in a series. It's a dark college hockey romance. And yeah, I haven't read the other 2, but I will be actually. Book 2 was actually picked for Patreon in February, so I'll be reading that. And then the first one, like, I plan to read anyway, because it's been on my like TBR, just hadn't got around to it. But this one is about Miles and Willow, and at the beginning of this book, Willow is dating his brother, but his brother was only dating her because of a bet. And so Miles has actually liked her for years, and he has like, when his brother started dating her, he knew it was for a bet, and he was expecting it to end quickly, so he didn't like do anything about it. But now he's like kind of pissed that it's went on this long, and finally her brother like breaks up with her and embarrasses her in front of like the whole party. And now Miles is like, great, I finally am gonna get a chance with her, but I'm gonna have to fix what you broke, because you've made her distrustful and you've made her, you know, nervous. And he's like, I have a lot of work to do. So our psycho Miles, who apparently is very lovable to other people, maybe he was lovable in the other books, but he's a psycho. Okay, he is. He's a sociopath. No, he's a psychopath. He is terrifying. There was a horrible crime that happens in the beginning, near-ish the beginning of this book. But our heroine is on a self-destructive path, and so there's a part of me that appreciates that, like, he's trying to save her from herself, but also, like, he wants her for himself. So he's like, I don't need to fully save you. I just need you as mine. So he goes about a few different tactics to helping her get, like, sober and helping her get back on track. She is, like, she's an alcoholic, and she is over drinking and making herself sick all the time. And so he tries a few very extreme things to overcome this, which, again, being someone who's a child and an alcoholic, I don't see how those things would have really helped. But also, he does force himself on her multiple times because he's like, I need you to see how good we are together. So there is a time where he does, I mean, he rapes her. We'll just call it that. He forces her. And he eventually something happens to her house where she's not able to be there. And so he moves her in with him, and he gives her these rules about their rules of living together, their rules of being together and what they are. And if she doesn't follow them, she'll get punished. So then there's kind of a bit of dynamic play going too. And so it was interesting because, of course, we see her fighting against it, but we very quickly see where she's like, I want someone to tell me what to do because I've been making bad choices. So there's a bit of that, and I was appreciating that. And again, I was actually okay with the story of this, even though it was very dark in there. I can get on board with it. I can get on board with him being like, I'm going to take care of it. Yes, he makes some mistakes in doing that, which in a way I actually appreciate. One of his punishments goes too far, and it's not a physical type of one, but there's a punishment he does that it goes too far, but he realizes it, and he's like, oh, because it's like, how is a 21-year-old supposed to be smart enough to handle addiction and be able to help a person get it? I don't know. So I was okay with him making that mistake. When we got to about 80% of this story, which is a very long book, there was a lot of sex in this book. I liked a lot of the sex that was in this book, but when we talk about a book being too long, easily 50 to 75 pages could have been cut if we cut half of the sex scenes, and this still would have been a 5 on my spice. This was a 5 on the spice scale for sure, just from sheer number and creativity. But anyway, so the plot things happen at the end that just made this go nuts. So it didn't have a third act breakup. It didn't have things messed up with them, which is great because they had a really rocky to get there. But when we have the plot stuff come in, I was like, what is this? Is this CSI? What the hell are we in the middle of now? Are we in a college horror movie? I don't know what happened. So honestly, this is the other one that I said that this was going to be a 6-star. But I'm not kidding you. I was like, wow, I haven't read a dark one like this that does these type of things I love in a long time. And I was like, wow, this might be a 6-star read. But then it just so drastically did this type of plot at the end that I was like, well, this is a 4, because if it had ended at a different place, and maybe if you've read it, if it had ended at a certain place, it would have been that. But to be fair, the stuff that happens in the third act is set up in the beginning. I just wish that hadn't been set up in the beginning at all, so that we could have had the other story. And again, this was 470 pages, so if we had cut from the beginning and the end, that stuff, this still could have been 350 pages and still been good. So anyway, that's just my opinion. I still do recommend this if you like really fucked up dark romances where non-con and stuff is happening, because it's there. So let's go through some of the kinks and stuff, because this book is going to end up on a lot of rec videos for me eventually. So there is the cock warming, of course. There is non-consensual stuff, under the trigger warnings, he does rape her. We'll call it what it is. It's one of those where there's no dub con the very first time. It's that. But there's knife play, there's marking with said knife, there's blood play, breath play, breeding kink, somnophilia. Yeah, and then for the trigger warnings, like I said, there's non-con, there's violence, drugging, murder, alcoholism, kidnapping, and if you are claustrophobic, there's some stuff that could be tough for you. So this one has a lot, and I said this one is no joke. It really does push the boundaries, okay? So it is past them. But I definitely plan to read more in this series, and yeah, it was addicting, I'll say that. I read the first chunk of it the one day, and the next day I did not put it down until I was done. And I love getting lost in a story like that, so it gets its props for that. So, all right, we're wrapping this up. Sorry about the weird lighting stuff again. I don't know what I'm going to do. I need to, I don't know what I'm going to do. So we ended up back in front of the shelf anyway, because that one got weird. But Anyway, thank you so much for watching, my friends. Thank you for going on this crazy ride. Again, don't forget to check out the store before all the goodies are gone, and we'll see you in the next video. Bye.